Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Brady with Forbes Talks. I'm here with my colleague, Kerry Dolan, talking about Elon Musk. Kerry, you oversee the coverage of the world's billionaires. And I think for quite some time now, Musk has been the biggest of the big, right? How long has he been number one for?
It's amazing. He had a meteoric rise in 2020. So he was only this year, 2022, was the first year that he was number one in the world on our annual list. But
Right.
he overtook Bezos to become number one richest in the fall of 2021. So it feels like it's been forever, but it actually hasn't.
They're fleeting. And this time, well, maybe not exactly this time last year, but certainly last November, I think he hit a high of 320 billion. He's now down quite a bit. Like, what happened?
Yeah. So basically, so just kind of a little back up to the whole history of him really quickly. He became the chairman and investor in Tesla in 2004, I believe, and then became the CEO of Tesla in 2008. Tesla went public in 2010. He first became a billionaire in 2012. We put him on our list at 2 billion in March of 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stock kind of went up bit by bit over time. By 2015, he was worth 20 billion, 15, excuse me, 12 billion. By 2018, 20 billion. But 2020 was the year, like it was the pandemic. It was crazy, right?
It was explosive for a lot of people. Yeah,
yeah,
but especially
horrible
him.
time for most of the country. But the stock market, of course, did crazy well in 2020. In March of 2020, he was worth $25 billion on our annual billionaires list. And then a year later, March of 2021, he was worth $151 billion. So that is a huge climb. And it was basically, yes, there was some of it was the increase in the value of SpaceX, which is a private company, and there were investors putting more money in at a higher valuation. But Tesla is a much bigger piece of his net worth. And that was the real reason for the run up.
November last year, Kerry, he was worth 320 billion. He's now down, I believe last I checked, around 191 billion. Obviously Twitter is top of mind, but what happened in the past year to really slice so much wealth?
I think some investors thought it was overvalued. I certainly thought it seemed overvalued.
The
for
Tesla,
a company sorry, Tesla was overvalued. Because the company was producing about 100,000 cars a year, give or take, and was worth more than Toyota, which was producing millions, right? It just it didn't make sense. Yes, the company is growing and they have production in China and all this kind of stuff, but you have competition coming in. You have more electric car. You have big companies like Volkswagen and BMW getting into electric car making. So there's competition, and I think there was a lot, and all overall the stock market declined too. So we have an overall decline in stocks generally. And then you have the craziness of the Twitter stuff, but the Twitter thing didn't really start until April, right? So the stock started falling even before that, but a lot of it has been, people are saying, there's some unhinged behavior that's coming through from Elon Musk. Today he's been tweeting about craziness with Apple and saying that Apple's threatening to ban Twitter from the App Store and what's going on, Tim Cook. And, one of the analysts who follows Tesla, Dan Ives, tweeted what I thought was pretty on the ball. He says the Musk versus Apple new battle is not what investors want to see. The street wants less drama. The Twitter situation is the gift that keeps on giving for Tesla bears. Surprisingly, Tesla stock was not down that much today. But, long term, it seems like, okay, first of all, if Apple does remove Twitter from the App Store, that's not good. You're already seeing stories about, I read something about Musk calling up CEOs of companies that have removed their advertising for Twitter and berating them. Is this a way to win back advertisers?
And it gets to the point really of there's the, whatever hinged or unhinged behavior that takes place on Twitter. And then there's the reality of being CEO of multiple companies means that you're not really all in on the company that one might be invested in. And I think there's probably some legitimate concern over the degree to which there's oversight of Tesla at such a critical point in the economy, right? Is that, there's so much it's ambient, what's happening in the environment, but it's interesting to try and isolate how much of his wealth is really due to his behavior at Twitter and just these other factors of not really having as much time for the companies we know him for.
Yeah, heck, if I was a Tesla shareholder, and I'm not, I would be wondering, what are we paying him for? He's giving right now, it feels like he's giving all of his time to Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Obviously he's got deputies at Tesla who are running the show because they continue to produce cars, right? It's not like the company's shut down, but it's a lot. A CEO job is a big commitment. And so the fact that he's CEO of SpaceX and Twitter and Tesla, and the Boring Company, it's just, it's too much, right? I think it's too much.
I want to ask more generally, since you have done these lists for years, and it is really investigative journalism, is Elon Musk one of the easiest people to assess because so much of his wealth is public, or just give us some sense as to just the confidence with which we track him in particular relative to some others on the list?
No, that's a great question. The easiest fortunes to track are the ones where it's public stock, because if you are the CEO of a publicly traded company, your shareholding is public, we can look it up, and as it changes, if you buy more stock or sell stock or give it away, you always have to file something with the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, and we look at those filings all the time. So for the Tesla piece of Musk's fortune, it's pretty straightforward. The thing that's where you could maybe, people might differ is he has pledged a lot of his Tesla shares as collateral for loans. And so, what we do at Forbes to take account of that is, we don't know the full size of all those loans. He doesn't have to disclose all of his personal loans, but we discount a percentage of his pledged shares from his net worth to essentially account for the debt that we know those shares represent, some debt and he's been known to borrow. He's like a kind of a cash poor billionaire. That's kind of what he hasn't sold that many. Last year was a big deal too, that he sold a bunch of Tesla shares. A lot of that speculation was that he sold them, when the price was quite high in late 2021, was probably a good time to sell them. And then he could use that cash to pay for Twitter. Of course, at the time, we didn't know that was in the horizon.
How much of his net worth is Tesla? Because, there is also SpaceX. Is it the bulk of his net worth really is that company?
It's over 50%. It's maybe 55 or 60% is Tesla, because he's got Tesla stock plus he has Tesla options.
Right.
Which are worth something as well. So yeah, it's more than it's the biggest chunk of his net worth by far. And then SpaceX. And yeah, he's got, and then of course he doesn't really have so much cash right now because he spent it all on Twitter, but he has the value of the Twitter asset, which of course, the other thing is, he just bought Twitter for $44 billion. He doesn't own all of it, right? There's some other investors, including Prince Salwa from Saudi Arabia. And Jack Dorsey, I believe. But he paid more than most people think it's worth. Most people think the Twitter is worth a lot less than he paid for. Most social media companies are trading at a value that's much lower.
Would there be anything you'd say in terms of, again, it's hard to isolate, but he is somebody who has taken, in some cases, kind of what would appear to be remarkably self-sabotaging behavior when it comes to preserving wealth. You mentioned some of the tweets, for example. Has that been a bigger factor in his wealth? Because I'm assuming so much of people's wealth really is what's going on in the environment and really sort of economic conditions and enthusiasm for stock. But Musk does seem to be somebody who we pay closer attention to what he's saying, and in some ways what he's doing, we do use the Tesla as a surrogate for how we feel about him on a personal level. Is that too strong to say?
No, I mean, well, it's interesting. I mean, I kind of was scratching my head in 2020 when Tesla stock was going through the roof because I didn't feel like what was changing, what was so different about Tesla. I mean, it was doing well. People wanted electric cars, but was there something that was so dramatic to make the stock go up so much in the course of 1 year? I don't know. I didn't see it. But in terms of what's different, I think about Musk versus, say, some of the other billionaires, particularly like Jeff Bezos. So we tallied last year all of the stock in Amazon that Bezos has sold since Amazon went public
Yeah.
in the mid 90s. And he'd sold more than $26 billion worth of Amazon
Wow.
stock. And, you know, so a bunch of that he's put into his rocket company, Blue Origin. But he is invested in a bunch of other companies. He has a whole, website, Bezos Expeditions, which lists a
Right.
bunch of his investments. And there's some biotech stuff and there's some other things. And then he's giving some money away too. With Musk, the sale of the stock, he really, I mean, since between the time of the IPO of Tesla and then last year, he hardly sold any shares of Tesla. And I think there was maybe one sale back in the early on after the IPO. And so as far as we can tell, the stock that he sold, again, we think the money was used to buy it. So it's not like he's, saving billions to retire on. Like, I don't think
Right.
he
He's
doesn't.
not buying a bunker in New Zealand. He's all
No,
in.
he doesn't have a yacht. I mean, he was, a big deal last year. He said, I'm going to get rid of all. He had 7 homes in California. He was going to sell them all. And he did. So he's not really into having possessions that we know of, that we can see. So he's a little bit of a different breed. He clearly loves the attention of being the head of Twitter, though, and tweeting all the time. It does kind of make you wonder how he has time to look at any of his other jobs.
Yeah. No, I think very interesting, and obviously more to come. We will continue to track his wealth real time, and of course, on that annual basis. Thanks very much, Kerry.
Thank you.